Good morning, Mom Nation. I'm Katie. I'm here for our monthly couples show where we talk with Diana Eisel, certified couples counselor, right? Can I say that? Is that the correct way of saying it?
So, licensed associate marriage and family therapist.
All right, that's better. That sounds so much better. So here we are with Diana, our once a month show that we call Our Love Story, where we take live questions. So if you have any questions that are either related to the topic or heck, we don't mind going off topic today, do we, Diana?
Not at all.
We can go off topic too. So if you have questions that are burning that might not be related to the topic, or if you have questions that are burning that are related to the topic, we are your girls today. So for those of you who haven't watched one of our previous shows, this is, I think, show number 4, if I remember right, 3 or 4. So we kind of just got started with this. It's an idea Diana and I had a couple of months ago because we see so many posts, right, throughout the group that are, he did this, she did that, I don't know what to do, talk me off the ledge, help me. So this show was born. Can you tell our audience just a little bit about you and why we have you here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Katie, to your point, we see a lot of posts in MOMnation about relationships, marriage questions. What do I do about this? Am I the crazy one? Am I overreacting? Like those types of things, parenting issues, all kinds of stuff all across the board. And so it looked like there was a need for maybe someone to bounce some questions off of, or maybe at least give some overall overarching guidance on some of those things. So everyone has a lot of the same questions. We all face some of the same dynamics and issues in our relationship. So this is just kind of a space for everyone to kind of collect all that information and maybe take little bits and pieces from them if they find it useful. So I am a marriage and family therapist, as I said earlier. So I specialize in couples counseling. So some of the things and issues that I specialize in is there are high conflict, infidelity, infertility, communication issues, parenting issues. So a lot of things that a lot of people experience. So I do have a little bit of a different perspective than maybe someone who doesn't have a lot of experience with that. So I am thrilled to impart, personal and professional experience. And if someone gets something, a little tiny bit of positive something from that, then I feel good about that.
Awesome. I'm right there with you. I feel the same. That's why, share my personal story. And I've only started doing that over the last couple of years and, just share sort of the more private details about my life and about what I'm going through, because I figure, hey, you know what, or what I've been through, I'm like, if it helps one person, just one person, either not feel alone or understand that there is a way, or, see an opportunity to get out of the rut that they're in, based on what I have to say, then, hey, I'm happy. I've done my job here. So totally agree with you. For those of you who want to catch our previous shows, we've got some great topics that we already have spoke on in some previous shows. We are on YouTube at MOMnation USA is the handle. And you will see there's a specific playlist just for Our Love Story. And that's where you'll find our previous episodes. You said something in there that I had to jot down. I don't know if you noticed, but I smell a topic for another show coming up. And you said, you brought up the topic of infidelity. And I think there's just so much around that we can talk about. And in a future show, I would like to talk about the impact of an open relationship also. Not because I want to know personally. It's not something that I'm involved in. Although, no disrespect for those that go that route. Maybe it works for you. But I wanted to talk about that and kind of see, what's really happening, what's really unfolding in those types of situations. So future episode on deck, Diana.
Definitely. I love it.
Yeah. So let's talk about money.
Ooh, money.
Money's our topic for today. Now, if you had to choose what the top 2 things that couples fight about, what would they be?
Money and in-laws.
So we talked about in-laws last week.
We did.
Now we talk about money.
Yep.
So just based on experience, maybe you can think of a couple of, of your clients' situations. Obviously, we don't share names here, of, some that maybe have had some pretty crazy, I don't know, situations involving their spouse and their finances? And can you kind of speak to that and maybe give some examples of what other couples have gone through that you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. So money is always a hot topic. I have yet to meet a couple who hasn't at least had the conversation or disagreement about how to spend our money, how to make our money, where do we put it, how much do we save, how much gets invested, how much do we donate, how much, there's just like allocation of money, things like that. So oftentimes our disagreements from money come from different meanings of money. So everyone has a different meaning attached to what money is. So oftentimes two people don't have the same meanings of what money means to them. So when they come together and they're having disagreements, they're not actually arguing about, should I buy this, new motorcycle or something like that. Like, it's usually not about the content or the item. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's about the money. And so if we can clear the way past the content, past the subject at hand, and get to the root of it, it's, well, this is what money means to me, and this is what money means to me, and we don't agree on it. So specifically, I have experience with a couple who wanted to be able to donate more money than the other partner did. So they wanted to be able to use it for different charitable causes and things like that. And the other partner didn't necessarily agree. And when we got down to the root of it, it wasn't an issue of the other partner not wanting to donate or not wanting to do those things. It was because she had a different meaning attached to money than her partner did. So when we talk about different meanings that are attached to money, there's several. So there's security. So money makes us feel safe. Oftentimes people who have grown up with some sort of financial insecurity, money means security as an adult. Money can also have an attached meaning of love. So some people equate money to feeling cared for. For some people, it's survival, being able to put food on the table, roof over our heads, being able to take care of our basic needs. Again, kind of like security. Someone who's had experience either growing up or a previous relationship where finances were really hard and not being able to provide was very difficult or impossible. Those behaviors and those kinds of emotional injuries tend to carry on into adulthood. And so survival can be a common meaning for money. For some people, it's freedom. The freedom to do whatever you want, buy whatever you want, do whatever you want, go wherever you want, travel, do all those things. So for some people, money just means freedom, and that's what we're chasing. Another meaning is power. So a sense of positive well-being, that I have control, I have power. And then there's contribution, the ability to donate, to make a difference, to give back. And for some people, it's success. I've made it. If I have a certain amount of money, that means that I've made it, I'm successful. And that kind of ties into another meaning of significance. So feeling important or feeling desired. So some people really feel like money makes them desirable and makes them important. So all of these meanings come from the Gottman Institute, John Gottman, who is basically a pioneer in relationship and couples counseling. So all of these different meanings that are attached to money, again, no two people generally in a relationship have the same meanings. So If you have someone that has security as their meaning for money, like feeling safe, and then you have another person that has a meaning of freedom, being able to do whatever you want. So this person wants to book a cruise or a trip or something like that. And this person's like, well, what if? What if something happens? What if there's a crisis? We don't have enough money in the bank. I need to feel secure. I need to feel safe. You know what I mean? And so we're no longer talking about, well, why don't you want to go on vacation? We've never had a vacation like this. Why don't you want to do that? Do you not think I make good decisions? It's just completely, it goes right downhill instead of talking about, well, what does that mean to you? Well, spending money sometimes makes me feel insecure. Sometimes it makes me feel unsafe. What if this happens? This has happened to me before. I don't want to see that again. And then it's a completely different conversation. It's a lot easier to validate somebody's experience from that perspective than just, no, I don't want you to do that.
Well, and I like that point that you bring up, because I feel like based in, excuse me, conversations that I've had in, my own relationship is we forget, or maybe we don't know, or maybe, it just doesn't register that we could have these different feelings surrounding this topic. And it becomes well, you just want to control me, or you just want to, control our resources or control our assets. And then it can, like you said, spin off into a whole other ball game, when if 2 and 2 just came together and said, hey, you know what, I need to spend because it gives me exhilaration and it makes me happy. And the other one, like, the example that you brought up, well, I can't spend because I then won't feel safe, and that really will affect my mental health, going forward, if I don't have X amount in the bank. So in that situation, in that scenario, when you have two like just totally opposite individuals that have that different feeling surrounding money, what's the solution?
The solution is for each of them to first identify and acknowledge what that meaning is, and then giving the opportunity for each of them to validate what that is. That doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It doesn't mean you have to like take their perspective, but it does mean you have to be curious, to validate that. Like, why do you feel that way? Where does that come from? How do you feel about that? Being curious, validating is, the best thing that you can do. And then compromise. Like, what is a fair compromise that still doesn't sacrifice your security and safety, but still fulfills my need for, freedom, or whatever the case may be. So really just understanding where that comes from, again, getting below the content to what's deeper, rather than just, why can't we go on this vacation? Why are you trying to control me? Why are you trying to tell me what to do? Kind of thing. So if we can get past that part of the conflict and getting down to the root of it, we can generally find a solution from there.
So let's just say we're in the middle of that, and we go off in the tailspin, and we don't actually address each other's feelings surrounding that topic. And it's just you want to control me, and it's you're a frivolous spender, and oh my God, you're crazy. Like, and it ends up spinning into that. What are some tips and tricks on how to bring that back to calm and bring it back to the actual root of the issue? If somebody recognizes, whoa, this is spinning out of control, how would that party bring things back?
One of the important things is in those situations is taking accountability. Like, everyone has a role in every conflict that you have in your relationship. It doesn't mean that we're placing blame, and blame is something that I'll address here in just a minute, but taking accountability means I know what my role is. I can acknowledge that. I know that, when I said this, it was interpreted as this. I can validate how that didn't make you feel really good. So accountability is step one, but through accountability, we have to recognize that placing blame is not going to find a solution. So when we start getting into contemptuous statements like, you always do this to me, you always tell me I can't do this, or you never let me do what I want, things like that, then we're placing blame and attacking someone's character. And then we're not actually going to get to a place where we can find a solution, because we're attacking each other. So if we can get to a position where we can remove the blame and look at the issue as like a third party, like issue thing over here that we get to solve together through accountability and through not placing blame. And then what are we really talking about? If you feel like you're being blamed for something, you're going to feel defensive. You're going to feel like you're under attack. And so there's not going to be much room for vulnerability, because you're feeling defensive. You feel like you have to protect yourself. You feel like anyone is going to do that. So if we can take that blame and place it over here and just look at the issue itself and what can we do to better understand what's happening here, that's how we can start to find solutions and, again, find compromise.
Is there, and I don't know, maybe this is something you do, but I don't know, I'm not sure. Is there someone out there that specializes in sitting down with couples and going over their financials so that they can help them come to that sort of agreement where maybe it's like, hey, frivolous person, or, assuming they're a frivolous spender because it makes them happy, whatever, you get X amount and you can spend that whenever, wherever, on whatever you want, but it's X amount. And then, okay, person that never wants to spend anything, even though, maybe they have many resources, you have X amount of resources and it's going to take this catastrophic event, or it's going to take many years of no income coming in, or whatever it is, for you to be at that spot that you're feeling like you're in when the other party spends. Am I getting too confusing? Is there somebody that you know of that could help a couple with that?
So I feel like it's a two-part thing, because one, there are certainly experts and financial planners that can help for, planning for retirement and planning for emergency funds and like things like that. But before that can really happen, I think the couple really needs to come to terms with what we feel comfortable with. And you can always seek out that expert opinion or advice about, like, we recommend a family of this size have this much money set aside for an emergency, or if you retire by this age, this is how much you should be depositing every month. So if you can certainly get that guidance from like a financial planner to make sure that like those necessary items are financed, paid for, figured out. And then I think though the rest of it in terms of like spending, how much do we spend on groceries? How much do we spend on all these other household items? That really has to come down to, can the couple talk about what their expectations are, and can they fulfill those commitments in terms of what each partner wants and what they expect? You know what I mean? I understand you only want to spend this much money per week on groceries, which is obviously changing right now
rapidly.
And come to terms with how much I'm expecting to spend, and it falls in line with whatever this grand plan is. I think the financial advisor can help with the big stuff. But I think if the couple can sit down, and if they can't sit down together and come to an agreement, that's certainly something that like a couples counselor can help tease out, because we're not accountants or financial planners. But what we can do is discover, like, why is this so important to you that you want to dedicate this much money or this percentage of money? Do you understand why this is so important to them? And how can we meet in the middle so that everyone feels seen? So it's kind of a two-part issue. It's a communicating about what my needs are, what my expectations are, but then also getting, the expert advice of, a financial planner to let them know that, like, here's your security piece. So if you're still depositing this much per month, or you're putting aside this much per month, this is what you're going to have. This is the plan we agreed on. You know what I mean? As long as we don't deviate from that, you've got that little safety net there. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a two-part issue.
I feel like that's important, because I feel like depending on where each of them are at mental health wise, there could be infinite resources, but that person that's feeling insecure could still feel insecure. Mm-hmm. Right? Let's talk a little bit about that. Like, tell me more about that.
So finding out where that insecurity comes from, right? Like every insecurity that we have, every feeling that we have usually comes from a life experience. So something that we've experienced in the past. So if we don't get to that deeper issue, it just sounds more like you never want to spend money. You don't want to spend money. You don't want to go do fun things. You don't want to blah, 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 blah. Instead of, tell me about what your experience or what your relationship has been with money. And when you get to the root of it, you might find out, well, growing up, had maybe a one-parent household. We didn't always get to eat regularly, or, we got evicted from our homes. And then it's like, this makes so much sense. This isn't about you trying to control me and tell me that you don't want me to have a good time, or, go out to dinners or any of that. This has to do with fear from that happening again to you, and also just the residual trauma from those things happening. And experiences play into that.
And let's put that into perspective for a quick sec. So we've determined, and we've talked about this a bunch, that a lot, probably if not all of our stuff that we deal with in adulthood comes from childhood, right? Mm-hmm. And let's just say that particular partner is, got all sorts of resources now in adult life, but went through that as a child. They're viewing that experience through a child's eyes, right? And I mean, back then, because they're only kids, so what are they going to do? And as a child, do we connect all the dots? Do we really understand what's going on? Do we understand maybe the struggles that our parents are having? Maybe we had a parent that was an addict, or maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe there was a reason why this parent was struggling that we weren't picking up on, because this is just normal life to us. Fast forward into adulthood, do we still do we still look at it as a child?
In a way. So when we do, sometimes we'll do like inner child work when we're doing therapy. So it's basically addressing your own self as a child and some of the traumas that they experienced. And you kind of put yourself in a position to teach them that things can be different and that you are here to protect them and show them that things are not like that anymore. And those traumas, those feelings of insecurity, all of those things have been there to protect them, but you don't need them anymore. It served them. It did what it needed to do. And I appreciate all of those things, but we don't need to do those things anymore. We have a different way, and I can show you a different way. So acknowledging that inner child, that trauma is still existing, but addressing that child and saying, I acknowledge these behaviors, these thoughts that we have has served us. It's protected us. But here's why we don't need it anymore. And I can show you why we don't need it anymore. And that's what kind of helps to heal some of those childhood traumas.
Other side of the coin, let's flip over to the other partner, the spendy one. Is it possible that the spendy one grew up in this maybe potentially same situation, and that's where their comfort level is, and so they continue to keep themselves there?
Absolutely. Like for some people, that meaning of money, again, going back to that like feeling of importance or desirability. And some people want to give the impression that they're not struggling in any way and that they do have strong financial resources. Sometimes that comes from a childhood or history of maybe having a lot of money and didn't really see the planning part going into it, didn't really see the financial security. It's just like, we're just having fun, having a great time, spending all this money, and that's what we do. And then retirement fund, like, what's that? I don't need to do that. But then there could also be the complete opposite where they didn't have a lot, and so now that they have those resources, they want to spend them because they never want to be associated with who they were before or their family or their upbringing or whatever. So they take large steps to ensure that they will never be associated with that. So it can really work both ways in that situation.
I'm hearing that counseling is helpful in all of these situations. That's what I'm hearing. So we all know, and we've all heard, you get into relationship, and during the honeymoon period, while you're still, crazy head over heels and finding no fault in each other, that's a good time to have these really deep conversations if you're planning on moving forward, right?
Absolutely.
What needs to come up in the money talk?
What are your expectations around savings? What's your expectations around, look at our salaries and, fund money versus, practical money, how much we're going to be putting into savings. When do you want to retire? Have you thought about what age you might want to retire? Thinking about career changes, school, things that are going to be coming up that are going to cost money. Are we going to pay for our future children's college education, or are they going to be taking out loans and paying for it? Those types of things should be coming up beforehand so that later on it doesn't become an issue. And also talking about history with money. So whether it be past relationships or childhood, because it shouldn't be minimized that past relationships can certainly cause some trauma around finances. I've seen posts about it. I've heard people talk about it. In a two-parent household where one parent works and is the breadwinner and completely supports the family, and then the other one doesn't, and then they split up, and then what happens? It can leave one person feeling insecure, being left out in the cold. I don't know what I need to do. Or in even more drastic situations where there's abuse present and they want to leave, what are they going to do because they don't have that money set aside? Obviously, the court systems take a very long time to do their thing. They will take care of them. But in those instances, did we have a conversation beforehand? Did we make a commitment to, if that were to happen, talking about getting divorced before we're even married, but if that does happen, what's our plan? What's something that we can both commit to so that both of us go into this feeling like we're taking care of each other regardless when it comes to finances?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. For those of you out there that are just catching up with us, we are taking live questions. We are talking about money, how it matters in relationships, what it means in relationships, how to talk about it, how to deal with it. this question I have for you is, I'm just so interested in what your answer will be. I know that people do things differently, and I'm not, shedding any opinion here, whether it's right or it's wrong, but what about those couples who decide not to pool their funds?
I think a lot of couples do that. They have their own separate accounts, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. I think if both couples are totally fine with it and they're comfortable with it, and they have, they're looking at it from a very healthy standpoint, I think it's fine. Some people decide that putting their money together is fine. Some people do two separate accounts, then have like a shared account to pay for the mortgage and bills and all of that stuff. I don't think there's anything wrong with it either way. I think it really comes from intention and meaning. If we're saying we have separate accounts because I don't want him to see that I'm spending money, then I have to ask the question, well, what happens if he knows that you're spending money? Or is there some sort of control dynamic happening here, or insecurity dynamic happening here, or we're starting to hide things? But if everyone's transparent and they're like, yeah, I like to go to Starbucks 4 times a week, and I don't want to hear about it. Okay, well, if we're looking at it from a control standpoint, that's not good. If we're looking at it from a standpoint of, I like to have my own fun money, he likes to have his own fun money, I don't care what he spends his money on, as long as our joint account or our bills are taken care of jointly, however we've decided to do it, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I hear a lot of chatter about it, and there's definitely a lot of opinions out there. I imagine that it's a little less healthy when, like the scenario that you just brought up, when there's, one that's the breadwinner and one that maybe works, part-time or not at all. And that's the one that, maybe has different duties, handling household, kids, whatever. What about in that dynamic? And I mean, is there a point where there is financial abuse in that scenario?
Oh, absolutely. If one partner does not have access to money without either having to ask or some other means of getting access to that money, if it's being withheld or restricted in any way, that can certainly be financial abuse. Where money is held over someone's head in order to get them to agree or be compliant in some way to elicit some sort of behavior, that's definitely financial abuse. Anytime where we're using money as a carrot in a relationship to get something that you want, certainly financial abuse. So if one parent is working, the other one isn't, if the one that isn't doesn't have equal access to that money, it's not always fact, but it can lead to and be a symptom of financial abuse.
That's a term that I honestly just became familiar with recently, like over the last couple of years. And I don't know if I'm just under a rock and in the dark about things, or if that's something that not a lot of us are aware of is a thing, because like sometimes, and you experience a lot more people's situations, so you tell me if this is a thing or not. But like when I was growing up, there was some pretty screwed up things in my life, based upon the people that were surrounding me and caring for me, that I thought was normal until I got older. And I was like, oh, that was very far from normal, or very far from okay, or very far from healthy. And I feel like this whole idea of financial abuse kind of falls under that. Do you think that it happens more often than people are aware of in their relationships?
It certainly can. There's other meanings that are attached to that people don't automatically recognize as, oh, this is financial abuse, because oftentimes with financial abuse, a lot of shame and a lot of guilt is imparted onto the partner that doesn't work. So they'll remind them that, like, I'm the one that makes all the money. You don't make any money. If you want your own money, maybe you should have gotten a job, or maybe you should have had savings before, or something like that. So shame and guilt are two of the most powerful human motivators. So oftentimes that prevents us from taking any action or doing anything, because we have that shame and guilt. So that abuser will capitalize on that feeling and use that against you to kind of keep you complacent about what's actually happening. So I do think that it can definitely happen more frequently than people are aware of. but it's certainly not, chances are that the financial abuse that may or may not be occurring is probably not the only form of abuse that's happening. There might be some other form of emotional abuse going on there too.
So a couple of examples of things to keep in mind if, somebody out there that's listening thinks they might be in this situation. Can you go over those again? I know that you said a couple of them, having to ask was one of them, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not having equal access to finances, or having equal access to like bank statements, having to like ask permission to buy things is a very slippery slope, which is, I want to say, different from having a conversation about, is this a wise spending decision? Is this something you want to spend money on? That's not the same thing as asking for permission, but having to say like, can I have, $50 to go get a manicure because I don't have any access to the money, is a very slippery slope. And I want to say that that's not across the board financial abuse, but it is a very, very slippery slope. So not having access to funds, if it's ever used as a threat in conflict, is definitely an abuse power play. So if, you don't do this, then I'm going to shut off your debit card. Or if you don't do this, I'm going to take the credit card. Anytime that's used and it's weaponized, that's certainly a very big red flag for financial abuse. Anytime money enters the chat, so to say, when they're having a conflict about power differences, it's mine, it's not yours. I can take these things, I can give these things. Anytime where it's that sort of control dynamic, that's a red flag for financial abuse.
Good to know. All right, the big question. You're gonna love this one. When in-laws offer advice. Let's talk about it, Diana.
Offer advice overall, in general?
In terms of couples' finances. So clearly these in-laws are a little too deep to begin with.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, where to start there? I think that's going to have to go back to boundaries, deciding what are we talking to our in-laws about? If we haven't set that clear boundary and that's like in the rearview mirror and they're already aware of what our finances are, it's not going to go well. It's going to go very similarly to any other couples conflict, where you have a conflict. She's, being crazy and irrational, and she yelled at me for this and this, and they're going to say, oh my gosh, she's just being ridiculous. Then when things smooth over, you already know what they think of her, so they had your back in that moment. But now when everything is okay, you guys are no longer in conflict. They've already said what they said, and there's no taking it back. So when you associate that to money, oh, well, he should be, he should get a better job, or he should be making more, or why should you be getting a job? Maybe he should be getting a second job. And then we're again judging somebody's character instead of, you don't really have the whole picture. And this is our life, and this is our struggle, and we're going to figure this out together. It's very similar to any other couple conflict that's happening. If there's no boundaries there, it's not going to go well. And to shut that down, if it comes to your doorstep, is appreciate your concern, but we've got it under control.
Yeah. Dana's here with us, Dana Austin. And I love her comment. She said, if they don't pay your bills, it's none of their business. So let's talk about that real quick. Sorry, it sounds worse than it is. Just getting over a cough. Back to the advice. I feel like if somebody has a really great relationship with their parent, and maybe their parent, their mom or their dad or whatever, was their best friend or is their best friend, they spend a lot of time together, they share a lot of things with them, 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to share intimate details about the relationship. Is that unhealthy?
It certainly can be. That can create what we call like triangulation, where you have like the 2 members of the couple on the 2 points of the triangle, and then you have like the in-law. So now they are like a part of the relationship. So that I see it all the time. So that cycle has to be broken, where it's no longer a triangle, because they don't They don't get to weigh in on whatever the issues are. So if you're going to set a boundary, you also have to be the one to hold it too, and not get upset or stressed out after a fight and be like, oh, you'll never believe what he said about this, or he went out and bought this. And you can't set the boundary and then go back on it, because then that person just learns that, well, your boundaries are very wishy-washy and nothing's changed basically. So yeah, codependency and triangulation in relationships is typically something to look out for when there aren't strong boundaries.
So as the person, so let's just say I have a great relationship with one of my parents and they've been my best friend my whole entire life, and I've divulged everything and we're just tight. So once I get married, I should stop doing that. And how do I stop doing that?
So not necessarily. Your relationship with your parents will certainly evolve over time. It doesn't mean that you're just going to like completely cut them off, right? But if your relationship with your parent is really strong, really healthy, they're going to understand and respect when you say, there's certain topics that I can't talk with you about. It's just between me and him, or me and her, or whatever. And if that relationship is really strong, really healthy, again, they're just going to be like, hey, I get it. But if you ever need, sounding board advice or whatever, I'm here. If that parent goes all of a sudden like, oh, well, we share everything and we always talk about everything, and now you're just going to push me out. Those who protest the loudest to your boundaries are the ones that benefited the most from when you didn't have any. Yeah. So you really have to take a look at that relationship and say, like, is this a really good, healthy, close relationship? Or is this just a relationship with potentially some codependency and poor boundaries?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. How about, and this one, Dana's like, yep. And this one goes back to Dana's comment. Her comment again was, if they don't pay your bills, it's none of their business. What if they have helped you? What if your parents helped you get your first house? Or, they help you if you just can't make ends meet that month, and they help you make ends meet. Like, what then? Is that a healthy scenario? First of all, is that something that you would suggest to your clients or patients to do anything but, or like, talk to me a little bit about that scenario, because I see that a lot.
Yeah. I think it comes down to the question of, are there strings attached to this money? So I think there needs to be very clear expectations. Anytime a parent or an in-law gives money for like, short this month, or a down payment for a house or something like that, finding out very clearly, as uncomfortable as it might feel, because money makes people very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. But what are the expectations around this? Is this a loan, or is this a gift? If this is a loan, how long do I have to pay it back? If this is just a gift, then that's it. That's a gift. So it's just like any other assistance, gift, Christmas gift that you would receive. There's no strings attached to that. If you are starting to feel like, oh, they give us money, but then they want to impart all of their opinions and all of this on how we should be spending our money, that can also be a form of financial abuse, right? And then that also indicates to me that there's probably a lot of other stuff going on in terms of boundaries and other relationship dynamics that are really unhealthy. And if you're already in it, that's already happened, then it's probably not wise to use that as a resource again. And probably time for a conversation with them about, if we set these expectations already, we were under the impression that this was a gift. This was the expectation that it was a gift. However, our future financial decisions are between us. I like that. And I like that you equate it to a gift, because like, if I get a soap dish from my parents, they're probably not going to pry in my relationship, right? So it's the same thing. It's like, tell you where to put it in your bathroom.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's the same thing. If they want to help, great. But that doesn't, it's not a free ticket to continue to parent me. I think that's important. Anything that you'd like to add to this conversation? Oh, we got another comment. Dana said, I've seen parents try to control their adult children by supporting them way too much. Yeah, absolutely.
And typically did not start in adulthood.
Right, exactly. It's been going all along. And at some point, baby bird needs to fly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And
Anything
not
else?
only that, but it's again, now I've said it like 14 times, but as you get older, your relationships with your parents change, and sometimes boundaries have to be used.
Yeah.
And if that parent-child relationship as you get older is really healthy and strong, they're going to be okay with that.
Right.
They're
Right.
going to be respectful of that. They're going to understand that, oh, I could see how, yes, I am trying to help, but I could see how that might feel like overstepping to your partner, right? Because if, like, for example, a mom is giving her adult daughter money to help with the rent or whatever, and the husband's like, oh, I don't like that. That feels really gross. That has so many other meanings attached to it for me that maybe I'm not competent or capable, or I can't care for you, all of those things. If that enters the conversation, then the in-law, who hopefully has that really healthy relationship, could say, I can understand how that might feel like an overstep. Just know that my support is here if you need it, whatever way that is, and not trying to like push onto the adult daughter, what she should be doing or what she needs, because that dynamic's different now.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And honestly, like, how, just putting myself in the parents' shoes, like, how am I teaching my child to be on their own, to be able to, to become parents themselves, and to be, if I'm just constantly offering support and constantly trying to control. I bet you see that a lot, huh?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
That's unfortunate. Anything else you'd like to add to the conversation that we have not covered with our money talk?
I think we covered a lot of good stuff, and I hope if anyone has any questions, they'll reach out for any clarification.
Absolutely. Comment on this post here in the comment section below, and Diana and I will circle back to this. In the show notes, there is a link that you can access Diana's page, I think it is, that we have up there. Outside of that, Diana, how can people get in touch with you?
So you can visit my website. It's dianaeiseltherapy.com. You can schedule a free 15-minute consultation on there, which is really cool. You can also email me, and it's just diana@dianaeiseltherapy.com.
Awesome. And then remember, guys, the playlist for this show, we are here once a month. We have a different topic each month, is at MOMnation USA is our handle, and that's on YouTube. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye.